Europe. Because of land reclamation works, it now sits inland and is now regarded as being the oldest remaining building in the whole of the country. With such history behind it, the fort has seen countless tragedies and atrocities, and for a brief period between 1899 and 1902, was used as a prison to hold enemies that were captured during the Second Boer War. Having been built by slaves and as a place that experienced so much violence, there are countless souls still present in the region, and visitors often report experiencing very similar paranormal events. One well-known ghost is that of Governor Pieter Gijsbert van Noort, who unjustly executed 7 soldiers for desertion and was cursed by one of them before their deaths. He was found dead in his office soon after, and to this day can be heard muttering curse words that echo through the halls. There are also regular sightings of a ghostly black dog that lunges at visitors, a ghostly man that appears to jump from the walls, the sound of men and women arguing, and even bells that start chiming, even though they've long been taken out of service. So prevalent are the stories of hauntings in the fort that the guards responsible for patrolling the grounds today won't walk through the arches at night, and instead prefer to walk around the entire perimeter. We're constantly adding more people to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. Number 8. Old Changi Hospital, Singapore. Singapore's Old Changi Hospital was built in 1935 as a British Air Force hospital, but they were forced to withdraw at the outbreak of the Second World War when Japanese troops took over the island. They converted the building into a prison camp for Brits, their allies, and anyone considered to be anti-Japanese, and the condition these prisoners were kept in were atrocious. It also became the headquarters of the Kempai Tai, the Japanese secret police, who would often conduct torturous interrogations on site, and once they'd finished with their victims and killed them, impaled their severed heads on metal spikes outside the buildings as a warning to others. Following the war, the British troops regained control of the hospital, and it was taken over by Singapore authorities in 1965, after the country gained its independence. Still, after the atrocities that had taken place there, rumors swirled of a paranormal presence, and there were frequent reports of screams echoing out and the appearance of headless ghosts. The hospital closed in 1997 and was sold to a property developer who planned to turn it into a luxury hotel, but the plan was suddenly scrapped without an official reason, which has led many to believe it was the ghostly presence that scuppered the idea. Today, it's fallen into a state of disrepair, and only the bravest people dare set foot anywhere near. Number 7. Hinton Ampner, UK. Hinton Ampner is a stately home in Hampshire in England that was first built by a wealthy family in 1970 to replace a nearby Tudor house that was plagued with stories of hauntings. One of the women who lived there at the time, Mary Ricketts, wrote of rattling noises, the ground moving beneath her feet, strange temperature changes, and words of a different language being spoken to her while she slept. Despite a new house being built, it seems as if the strangeness associated with the place has continued, and all residents have befallen some form of tragedy. There were those who died prematurely, one who was murdered, and in 1960 a fire badly damaged the structure and meant it had to be fully rebuilt. The last owner died in 1985, and without any heirs he donated the property to the National Trust, who run regular tours around the place for those wanting to experience a piece of the English countryside. And of course for visitors wanting their own chance to see the ghostly happenings. Number 6. Banff Springs Hotel, Canada. The Banff Springs Hotel in Fairmont, Canada is one of the most famous haunted places in North America, and there are a number of legends about this place that attract ghost hunters from around the world. In 1926, after a small fire that broke out in the hotel, it was discovered that the contractor who had built the hotel had mistakenly included a small room with no windows or doors, and not even the hotel owner knew about it. Soon after its discovery, ghosts were seen walking in and out of it, which makes you wonder why it was there in the first place, and if it had ever been used for something.
Room 873 is gone.
If 873 is your lucky number, then unfortunately you won't be able to stay in this room at the hotel, because legend has it that a family was brutally murdered in there. And because subsequent guests experienced such vivid paranormal activity, the owners bricked up the door to look like the rest of the hallway. Other stories include the ghost of a former bellman who often walks through the hotel, strange noises that come from the bridal suite, even when it's empty, and a bartender who occasionally appears when there are large groups waiting for drinks. Number 5. The Stanley Hotel, Colorado. If you've watched or read The Shining and were freaked out by the story, then you have the Stanley Hotel in Colorado to blame. Built in a location with stunning views across the Rocky Mountains, strange occurrences have been reported ever since an accident that happened in 1911. Despite opening as one of the first hotels in the world to be powered by purely electricity, the power supply had proved to be unreliable, so the decision was made to install gas lighting. The day after the work had been completed, a gas leak in room 217 was ignited when a maid entered it with a lit candle, which resulted in her being seriously injured and a large portion of the structure being damaged. The owner paid for the maid's medical care and promoted her to head maid when the hotel reopened, but following her death in the 1950s, her spirit was said to haunt the rooms near to where the accident happened. Now known as the Stephen King Suite, it's one of the most popular ghost hunter destinations in the world. And if you're lucky, you might just meet the ghost that inspired one of the most famous scary movies ever made. Number 4. Château du Trésesson. The stunning Château du Trésesson in the Brittany region of France is thought to have been built at some point in the 14th century. It remained in the possession of the same family for the following 400 years before being transferred to new ownership. And it was after this happened, around the time of the French Revolution, that a strange story was shared by a local thief that detailed what he saw in the surrounding grounds. One night, a carriage pulled up and 2 men jumped out to dig a large hole. Next, they removed a woman in a wedding dress from the carriage and buried her alive in the pit with her bouquet, shouting that she had dishonored her family. The thief ran home and told his wife, who made him return to rescue the woman, but by that time, she was dead. If there was ever an event that would cause a soul to remain and haunt a place, then it's this, and sure enough, visitors to the chateau often report seeing a mysterious woman, dressed in white, walking through the courtyard close to where she's believed to have been buried. Number 3. Poveglia Island. Poveglia Island, which is in the Venetian Lagoon in Italy, is widely regarded as one of the most haunted places in Europe, thanks to its long and checkered history as a quarantine station, and in later years as a mental hospital. Fears of contracting the plague in the 18th century meant that incoming ships to the region had to moor at the island to make sure no one on board was sick. But this often led to completely healthy sailors coming into contact with the infected islanders and ultimately being trapped there themselves. It's thought that between 100 and 160,000 people died and were buried there. During this time, it was used for quarantine, many of whom had no signs of illness on arriving in Italy. The next use of the island as a mental hospital was equally as controversial because it became known as a place where experiments were conducted to try and understand certain conditions and supposedly try to cure them. In reality, in any other setting, the treatments would have been considered to be torture and inhumane, and many patients died as a result of what was done to them. The island was abandoned in the 1960s and has since deteriorated, which means that not only does it feel creepy to walk around, but the ghost sightings, strange sounds, and overall